guys, it's me and Lauren back for yet another Twiniversity podcast episode. And I think this one is going to be an especially good intro because we both know the guest. Lauren, today we're talking to Katie.
Oh, I love Katie.
Isn't that the best? So we were talking about like has her big family and she's military and moves all over the place. But we were really talking about too, like the membership and the meetings and stuff like that. It was so nice.
Oh, I love her.
Twin parents are the best. I mean, you really need them. I don't think it should be like optional. I think that whenever anybody is giving birth to multiples, you should automatically be assigned like a twin parenting mentor in the hospital.
Oh,
wouldn't that be nice if that was actually a thing?
my goodness, could you imagine? Oh,
Who was your very first twin mom friend?
I mean, the first woman that I was ever approached me about having twins and stuff was Leslie. Even though her twins are much older than mine.
Yes.
But she was the only one who was like, oh, I have twins too.
Where was that? You were like randomly in a store?
I was pregnant with the twins and I was in grad school and I was interning at a middle school and she was a PTA president. It just so happened that, my oldest and her twins are the same age. So
that's so funny. So like hypothetically, if you didn't have Rebecca, do you think you would have met Leslie?
Possibly, because then later on someone told me about the club. Leslie actually didn't tell me about the club. Someone else did. And then but I don't think we would be buddy like we go if there wasn't a Rebecca.
So for those of you in listening land, Lauren belongs to the Suffolk County Mothers of Twins clubs. And if you don't know, there are twin clubs all over the country. And so some of them are geographic based. Some of them are also like profession based. I've noticed that too. So there's like doctor moms of twins, or there's so it may not be a place that you could go meet people in person, but there are groups that are specific based on profession or location. So you were based on location, and the way that Lauren and I met was also based on location, because Lauren and I, at the time that we met, were both part of the New York State Mothers of Twins clubs.
Yes.
I miss that. And this year they're coming back, right?
Yes, and you better come.
That's in May, right?
It's either late April. It's April, I think.
I hope it's April.
I think
okay, good. All right. Fingers crossed that it's April. But like things like that, it's so great. I love don't get me wrong, I do love our monthly meetings, but it's really nice to be able to share a drink or a cup of coffee with the mom, or even having a play date.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, I'm telling you, it's so necessary. I think it was a big missing piece of the puzzle for me when I had the twinnies. I didn't know how valuable it was going to be to have companionship with somebody else that had twinnies. I wish that I knew you from the beginning, though.
No, me too. Yeah. And I joined the club, but never went to, I joined the club when my twins were 3 months old, but I didn't get there until they were 9 months old. So it took 6 months for me to get to a meeting. Newsletters every month. And I was like, look at all these fun things they're doing. And I just didn't get myself together to get to the meeting.
We're the worst. Well, the good news is today we're going to kind of have like a behind the scenes look of Katie's life. And it's so exciting because we know her from even before, when the babies were in the NICU was the first time that we met her.
Yes.
And so they were pretty early. So she was with us while they were in the NICU was the first time that she came to a meeting. And now to see how far she's come, and she's such an important part of our meetings. Like if she's not there, we totally notice that she's missing.
Yeah. And she's become a mentor now for the new twin moms, I think.
Oh, she's the best. And we get to see her. So we're going to talk about this during the podcast too, but every second Tuesday at 1:30 Eastern time, you could see Katie, you could see me, you could see Lauren. So we always have our membership meeting. So are you ready to dig in and talk to Katie?
Yes.
All right, girl. Without further ado, here is Katie. Guys, I'm so excited because as I was just telling Katie, I actually know Katie, not in person officially, but today I am thrilled to have a guest that I have known for a hot minute virtually. So, guys, everybody say hi to Katie. Hi, Katie. That's what they do. Yay. So, Katie is a mom of twins plus a few bonus kids. So, when I first met Katie back in the day, were you still pregnant or were the babies already here?
I'm pretty sure I was pregnant.
All
I
right.
I think so.
Yes, I think so too, but I
I
couldn't put money on it.
only think I was on a couple monthly meetings and then it was like, bam, they were here.
Yeah, it was pretty
Mhm.
quick. So that's how we met Katie. Is Katie is one of our wonderful members that is you really religiously show up, which is really, really nice. So
Right.
we love that. So yeah, so Twiniversity has monthly meetings, and that's the way that we get to meet people. And you never know who's going to be on, right, Katie? Like truthfully, some meetings are huge and some have crickets. We never really know, but it's always somebody from the Twiniversity team, either myself or Lauren. And I think we had one like emergency month that it was Hannah, I think, was on with you guys. Did she do okay? We could talk about her. She's not here.
Yeah, I don't recall which one that was, but I know there have been tears in some of these meetings, but it's good tears. It's like they've got to come out.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole point of trying to do them. And we always, as like a Twiniversity team, we're always like, how beneficial are these meetings? But truthfully, for the people that go, like I find them very therapeutic, even just to be in a room with you guys that everybody's going through the same thing kind of at the same time.
Exactly.
Oh, I love that.
I
But
like there's a topic a lot of times I'm like, "Ooh, I'm excited about that topic." And it might be touched on for a little bit and then we just all get into what's going on in our lives and like what we need help with and we're like, "I'm in this stage right now and I'm going crazy. I need help. Any advice?" So, but I like that it goes that way.
I do too. And
Mhm.
we have like plans, like we actually have a set schedule of what
Right.
all the topics are going to be. But yeah. But the point of having a monthly meeting is to really make sure that you guys get what you need from it.
Sure.
I
Sure.
love that. But today, we're going to talk about one of the things that I'm fascinated by is that you are a military spouse and you have 5 kiddos, and the twinnies are your last kiddos that you currently have. Maybe there'll be a few more sets of twinnies. Who knows? We'll see how that plays out. But I'm really interested to know how it's been, like how you've managed being a I don't want to say a single parent, but at times
Mhm.
it's what's called for. And we have plenty of military families at Twiniversity, and I'm always fascinated because they could sometimes be international. And
Mhm.
often the families, truthfully, just so you know, Katie, if we have international families that need a class, we have been known to do private classes specifically for military families that aren't in the United States. We never want people to be like, oh, you're in Japan right now. So we'll always try to find a time that I can meet with somebody specifically and kind of get those questions answered. But we've had families in Japan, we've had families in Germany, we've had a family in Brazil. Do we have a base down there? I've definitely had a Brazilian expat family. I feel like she was in the military, but we have families all over the universe, and the commonality is that you guys are either married to or part of the military, and that's goes with the job. So
Mhm.
when you met your husband and you were like, this is it, he's the one. I blame the pink lipstick 100%, by the way. When you knew that he was the one and you knew that you were kind of going to get into kind of a military spouse,
Mhm.
were there any things any tips or advice that you got from any military families that were like, okay, welcome to the secret society that we
Mhm.
have here. Here's how you're going to manage best? Or was it a baptism by fire?
Probably a little bit of everything. I don't think I knew a whole lot about it going in. Once we were married and living in the same place together, there was kind of some spouse training, if you will. Just kind of like, this is what to expect, and these are different types of events that you might go to. And um, some of it was very interesting, but I got to meet other wives in that process, and we created a really strong bond. And there's 5 of us, 5 of our families who still to this day stay in touch, and our kids know each other. And it's been incredible to be able to go through this life and see everyone's families grow and People move around and sometimes you come back and you're in the same place.
Mhm.
So I think we lean on each other a lot.
So comparing your first pregnancy to your set of twins,
Mhm.
knowing like how do you manage better now as a parent, right? Because I got to imagine that the first time that you have a baby as a military partner, and there's always kind of this question mark as, you know, won't be here, where will I be, living, what type of hospital will be. How have you managed through all of your pregnancies to kind of just breathe into it and know that you're going to be okay? Because it's got to be unsettling that first time. So like, what advice could you give? Like what advice did you get as that parent training or the spouse training? How do you deal with that very first pregnancy with all those variables?
I mean, honestly, my first pregnancy, we were in Texas at the time, and we just had like a really good group of Army spouses that were really tight, and a lot of the other wives already had kids, so they could kind of give their advice. And I mean, this age with technology and the information you can get online, and all the books out there, I was reading all the books and had the different what to expect apps on my phone. So I was kind of getting it from everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
We've been very blessed for the most part with his career that we've kind of tried to plan our pregnancies when we think he's going to be home.
Okay.
Um, and we've been very, very lucky that it's worked out for the most part. There's the occasional training where he might be gone for a few weeks, or like you mentioned, deployments. But a lot of times we've been fortunate that that's happened after they've, been born and they've kind of been around for a little bit.
Okay.
Um, and you just get help where you can, like whether family comes in town or like you kind of create your extended family
Mm-hmm.
wherever you're living at the time.
Do you have to, like, every time you move, do you have to recreate a family, or because of technology, you keep your original kind of military family?
I would say both.
Okay.
Um, no matter where you live, you have your little support network.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's through church or if you're working at the time, I've been a substitute teacher off and on at different schools. So you create friendships, with the teachers that you're working with. And it just depends on the area. But it's kind of like dating. Every time we move somewhere, you're meeting new people and it's like, oh, I think I might like them. Like maybe I should get their number and
Mm-hmm.
hang out, or at least you can get together for play dates or anything.
You know, we taped an episode with a mom. Her name was Jen. She's a military mom. I believe it's Air Force. And interestingly, I went to high school with her. And I when I was talking to her, it was so funny because now, like, she's a mom and she's a military mom and she's a twin mom. And she said that the number one tip that she would give any military family is the last thing in the truck is the basketball hoop, and it's the first thing out, because she had all sons. And she was saying, like,
Okay.
just to keep them, that was the last thing that they put in. So it's the first thing that could come out, to always have them just kind of stay out of everybody's hair while they were
Right.
moving. And they apparently like moved like once a year. And I think her oldest was 16. Like they barely were settled. I think now her last place that she was is where she still is. But I don't know what her husband does. Honestly, I couldn't even tell you. And I can't even tell you what service he's in now, as much as I think of. But I remember that tip was so interesting to me, because I'm like, out of all the information that she could give somebody, that was her big thing. And
Yeah.
it was, I think our episode really was more on moving, because she
Okay.
moved so much than
Right.
anything in the military. So when you're thinking of, these are the things that I've done,
Mhm.
and it may be difficult for you because it's probably second nature, but what
Mhm.
are some of the things that you do as a military spouse, knowing that you could move soon? Like, how settled do you get? Or do you have any systems in the house that you're like, this is something that is always we always need a washer dryer on the second floor? Or like, are there things that you now know, moving a little bit more than the average American? What are
Mhm.
some of those tips that you have as far as being a bigger family and moving around all over the place?
I feel like it's changed as our family dynamic has changed from being married with no kids to 1 to 2 to 3 to 5 kids. We haven't moved yet with 5 kids. That's coming soon. So, I think the biggest tool is being flexible. And I mean, that goes for not just military families and moving, but for being a
Mhm.
mom. I think I really had to learn I can't control everything. I can try, but it's going to drive me crazy. And so more and more I've just had to let go of control and accept more help.
Mhm.
Um I don't know that I could give like one key pointer for the moves. A lot of times we have it's almost like camping because we've got our air mattresses and set of sheets and towels, and you're living out of a suitcase with your clothes, and with the babies it's all the pack and plays, and that's really all it is. But
Yeah.
I think for me, being able to try to stay positive and remain flexible, because you might be told that you're moving X date and then that changes. Or you might be told your husband's going to deploy on this date and then it changes. So I think that this whole lifestyle has taught me to be able to kind of just roll with it.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the kids. Like, you might think that you've got their routine down and it's going great for a few months, and then all of a sudden it's like nothing's working and you have to change your routine. So I would say flexibility is like my number one thing that I try to remain flexible.
Yeah. You're
Mhm.
such a chill mom. You really are. You're very, very chill. Even like when we first met, like it was remarkable. And it really does have to do with the fact that you've been around the block a minute being a mom and you've had 3 before. How do you think that having the twins versus your 3 previous pregnancies, your 3 previous experiences of raising singletons, do you really think that having twins is different? Or is it just like, there's another 2 kids in the house?
It's definitely different. And I think that's why I sought out this community of figuring out the questions I had about twins. I felt like I came in with a good tool belt of how to be a parent and how to do the basics of changing diapers and feeding them and
Mhm.
all of those things. But having that curveball of 2 at a time just, threw me for a little loop. And I was just curious, like, what are the things I'm
Mhm.
going to need that maybe I didn't need before with single babies? So, um, I don't know. For me, the biggest difference that was pretty, life-changing at the time was the NICU. I
Mhm.
never experienced the NICU, and that was really hard.
So tell us a little bit about that. Like, when did you deliver compared to your other pregnancies? And did you have any notice that you were going to deliver early? But twin parents in general, I think according to the CDC, I really think it's between 84 and 86% right now is how many families are born prematurely. Of course,
Mhm.
that's a big variable, right? Because the CDC is like anything before, 38 could be considered this level of prematurity, and anything under 34, 30, 30. So there's all different levels of prematurity. But how did you cope with the knowing that it was a twin delivery? Did you have a heads up that they were going to come early? Just walk us through a little bit of that experience.
So my first 3, my daughter, who's the oldest, I went 41 weeks with her. And the day I was going in to be induced, I ended up going into labor, and it was really long and it didn't work out, and she wasn't descending and was having some distress. So she ended up being a C-section.
Mhm.
And for 2 and 3, I chose to do scheduled C-sections. So I had them, I think, at 39 weeks.
Mm.
Just kind of right on schedule. And overall, I would say the scheduled C-sections went pretty seamlessly. Um, so I knew ahead of time with having the twins that I was going to be having a C-section, and I wasn't even going to attempt a vaginal birth. Um, but I didn't know that they were going to come quite as early as they did. I had placenta previa, so I had some bleeding. I think at 26 weeks, I had to go to the hospital for a couple days because of that. Luckily, the babies were fine, everything was fine. And then I ended up going in at 31 weeks, 3 days, and that's when I had them. So I woke up that morning, had bleeding, And, after going in the hospital, they're like, we're going to send you where there's a better NICU. Where I live, they just don't have a higher level NICU. So they
Mhm.
sent me to a different hospital. And then pretty quickly, I was in for an emergency C-section. But I think I wasn't mentally ready that it was going to happen that day.
Yeah.
So that was the challenge because I just never really felt. I think some people have internal knowing that like
Mhm.
it's happening. And I was just like, this isn't happening. It's not happening today. This is too early. Um, but everything worked out and the babies were, luckily, what were they, 4'2" and 4'3".
Mhm.
So they were good size for how early they were delivered. So that was definitely a positive.
And then coming home with them, like how long were they in the NICU and how different was the experience of coming home with them versus your previous three?
They were in the NICU about a month. So I think the hardest part was managing going to the NICU and being able to have that time with them and do skin to skin and still knowing I had three kiddos at home.
Mhm.
So we had a little combination of my husband and some family that was able to come and help. Neighbors would offer to like even take me to the NICU so my husband could stay home with the kids. It was kind of a little variety of everything. But I think the hardest part was just leaving them every time at the NICU. I felt like I was leaving a limb, like part of my body was missing. So I never had that experience before with the first three. We were very blessed. They just came home with us. So that was hard.
Now, as far as them coming home a month later, what were some of the things that were different once you got home? Like you had a routine that you had the security of knowing that I've been through this. I've been there, done that. I made it to 39 to 41 weeks. How was it different when you came home? Were you more stressed about it? Were you like, okay, it's a little bit different, but not much? Did the babies come home with any equipment? How different was it to come home also just in general with a second baby? Right? Because in addition to the prematurity, now there's like a bonus kid in the house.
Sure, sure. So we were lucky. We actually, the day we were going to get, I think it was Luke who was going to come home first because he had passed all the tests that he needed to do with the breathing and not desatting and all the requirements to graduate from the NICU. So we were originally just going to bring home him. And then when I showed up to pick him up, I've got my one car seat and they're like, "Oh, guess what? Cole can come home too." So I was like, "Oh, two babies now." So which was wonderful because I didn't want to have one still in the hospital. I know
Mhm.
that's very common. That's kind of typically what happens is one baby's ready to come home sooner. So we were lucky we got to bring both home. I think what the main kicker was at home was managing how often they're feeding and doing the side feeding that they do in the NICU. Um, we couldn't, other than my husband taking one baby and me
Mhm.
taking one baby, you can't feed two babies at a time doing the side feeding when
Talk
it's
a little bit more about that. Explain to people what you mean by that, because not everybody, that's not as common as you think it is.
so in the NICU, when they're taking their bottle for the first time, because before they're getting all their nutrients through the feeding tube, once they take the bottle, you're holding the bottle, almost parallel to the floor, if you will, and you're just getting enough milk in there, but not too much. And it's kind of a balancing act. I don't know
Mhm.
that I'm explaining it very well, but it's you need both hands and essentially one baby.
Mhm.
If anyone can do that with two babies at a time,
No,
I don't
nobody can. And
know.
nobody
Maybe an
should, by the way.
octopus with multiple arms.
They shouldn't. They shouldn't do it. And so it's also called paste feeding ish. And so it's a little bit more delicate when
Mhm.
you have a premature baby. And it's so much more important. And basically the reasoning is that if a baby, newborn premature babies do not have the same suck, swallow, breathe reflex that a typical newborn would have. So one, and I'm not explaining this to you, Katie, I'm trying to explain it to the universe
That's
because I
okay.
know
I
we
appreciate it.
we know, but the reasoning is that they do not have the coordination to know that, oh, this is fluid, I'm going to drink this versus I'm going to inhale it. And so they are in danger of aspirating. And so that's why you have to really be like super duper delicate when feeding a premature baby, because they haven't finished cooking yet. So a lot of the things that they would have done, I mean, they wouldn't have been drinking out of a bottle. They would have still been attached to your umbilical cord technically. And so they didn't need these skills yet. So it's alarming to some people that go to the NICU, like myself, that didn't know that that was a thing. And what happens is they have these things called bradycardias and DSATs, where basically their hearts are like, I don't know what's happening. Am I going to stop breathing? Do I just pass out? Am I supposed to take a breath in? And well, to the parent that's in the NICU, it's really like, oh crap, what am I going to do? But Katie, isn't it funny that after you're there for a minute, you're like, ugh, here's another one. Let me pat him on the back. Let's get this done. It becomes very second nature, but they're all things that would have happened in utero. We just get the extra benefit of seeing it in real life. I don't know how else to phrase it, right? So the whole side feeding, like there's so many more things like that for NICU families that to you, Katie, we're just like second nature. Like this is what we do, blah, blah, blah. But for a family that has never done that before, like you, with having 3 previous kids, I guess the benefit of not having previous kids is that when you do those things for the first time, they're almost like normal because you didn't know what normal was.
Sure. Yeah, it was an interesting time. Feeding lasted a lot longer. We were definitely more tired. But I don't feel like we were doing the side paced feeding for all that long. I feel like they kind of graduated out of that pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's fuzzy because it's like lack of sleep and my memory is just like shot.
Yeah. And every baby's different. I mean, some babies still have to come home and pace feed. Some babies, it just pick it up in the NICU. And by the time they're discharged, everything's good. It really is different because just every baby, every human is different. Right. And you have fraternal twinnies, right?
Correct.
Yes. I'm like, I'm not going crazy. I'm thinking about this because I've seen your kids get on virtually nonetheless, but still.
Right.
So now once you came home, how did you manage having the 2 versus always having like your systems of having the 1?
Honestly, a lot of it was just the advice. I read the book that you wrote and the advice from the other spouses in the group meetings. We did, their feedings together and we put them down together. So they were in the same routine. So even if one woke up, rather than just feeding one baby, we were always going to feed them, at the same time, essentially. And with the paced feeding, a lot of times, and we kind of went off the NICU schedule. So like Luke would be first, and then about 30 minutes later, then Cole would eat, but they're right there kind of in the same time. And then once they were pros and taking a bottle normally, we used the Twinsy pillow and it was like 2 at a time and, got to be a little more efficient but we still just always kept them on that same schedule. So I kind of hated it, but I would wake one up to feed both of them at the same time.
Yeah. But see, you were like I'm saying, you were so chill about it and you're like, okay, this is what I have to do. And I'm not saying that you weren't sleep deprived and you weren't as crazy as the rest of us. And we all are, but there was definitely an air of calmness about you from the beginning.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, like seriously.
Anyone in my family would describe me as calm, but I think the difference between me with baby 1 to 4 or 5 as a mom, I think is pretty drastically different. My capability or ability to sit through crying and be like, they're okay. Versus like first baby, it's like, oh, they're crying. I'm going to pick them up right now. Like what's going on? Just to be able to kind of go through the process of like, okay, fresh diaper, they've been fed, maybe they're tired, figuring out why they're crying and just not being as freaked out about things.
Yeah. What do you think you've really changed about your parenting philosophy now that you have twins? Like, have you given in more to things that maybe you wouldn't have done before because like we got to take the easier route, like this isn't worth fighting? Like how have you evolved as a parent and truthfully as a woman and as a wife? And I mean that's a loaded question, right? To say how we change so much and we change every day, but like what are the big things that how did the twins change you?
Mm. You know, I don't know. I think there's moments where I try to remind myself. You mentioned whether or not we're having more babies. We're complete. Our family's complete. But I think reminding myself to take a breath every now and then and just take in the moment and not be always rushing to the next thing and what's on my to-do list, because that's like my go-to is to
Mhm.
go there. Like what's my next appointment, what chores have to be done, when's the next feed. It's kind of like constantly in my brain. I think the the biggest change has just been trying to breathe and remember that everything's okay. Our babies are they're in a warm house, we have food, the big kids are in a school, they've got friends. Our toddler is he's
That
crazy.
toddler.
He's amazing. Our 2-year-old's amazing. We're going through like that tantrum phase, but just kind of like, there's these different seasons and phases.
Mhm.
And as much as sometimes you're ready to be done with a phase and move on to the next one, it's like this is the last time they're going to be in that phase. Like my 2-year-old's not going to be a 2-year-old at some point. So just sometimes appreciating the moment, even
Mhm.
though there's constantly chaos around me, just remembering like, gosh, look at this sweet baby and he's so cute and he's smiling and like just enjoying that and not always being like, I need to go grab my phone and get a picture. And I don't know, just kind of soaking it in every now and then.
So how are you preparing for the next step? Like how do you mentally wrap your head around that of like knowing like okay, here we go, we're shaking the snow globe again and now we have to resettle. How do you deal with that, like even emotionally, knowing that at any second, this sounds so crazy, this sounds like one of those like gotcha questions, but like how do you deal with that knowing that truthfully your whole living situation could be pulled out from under you, knowing that you're kind of at the mercy of the military and you got to go where they say you got to go?
Mhm. I think every move is slightly different and it depends on, so for me, I'm not in the military, my husband is, and kind of where he's at in his career and, where we're moving and why we're moving. I think that affects a lot of the details that come with the
Mhm.
move. So we kind of have an idea right now of like about when we're moving, where we're going, where we're going to live. So I feel like in this situation, we maybe know more than
Mhm.
we have in some previous moves. So a lot of times before a move comes up, you might take a trip to go house hunting. We're fortunate in this situation that we don't need to do that this time. But, you know, you're kind of preparing months ahead.
Mhm.
We've been like purging and trying to declutter and get rid of stuff a little bit, ahead of time. So when it gets down to the wire, we're not trying to do it all at the last minute. So I would say, and I don't know if that's answering all of your
No, it
questions.
really is. And I think the whole knowing where you're going is easier. And
Mhm.
is that typical though? Like do families usually get that, or do families usually get that much heads up?
Sometimes. I think again it depends on the military branch. It
Mhm.
depends on where they're at in their career. Sometimes they're moving because they need to go to training in school somewhere.
Mhm.
Sometimes they're moving because they're, joining a unit and that's going to be a unit that deploys and it just depends on what phase they're in and that really affects the move. And depending on the location of the move, like you might know the location but figuring out whether you're gonna live on post or off post,
Mhm.
I think it just depends on where you're at and what your family prefers to do.
Is there always kind of a base though to go to, or do you ever move to an area where there is no option of that?
Typically, there's a base. Not every time, but typically. Every place is different. So
Hmm.
we're in an area where we're kind of in a military community, but it's not necessarily a base.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know how to explain it any better than that,
Yeah.
but we're surrounded by military families,
Yes.
and it's been wonderful because our kids can just go out and play and have lots of friends, and we've been very fortunate here.
But like with I know this sounds so petty, but like with the shopping, right? Like one of the benefits of being a part of the military is that you get to go shop at these places. And I've wonderfully been to a few, luckily, with
Mhm,
friends of mine. And
mhm,
there's some things that are so dramatically less expensive that it's comical. But
mhm,
then there's some items that all you're doing is saving the tax and that's it. So like if
mhm.
you buy a Dyson vacuum, meanwhile, I'm going to down in Virginia Beach, they have like that ginormous commissary. And I couldn't wait to go. And I'm like, oh my God, this is great. Where liquor, definitely worth buying there. But
Uh-huh.
I was like, I need a new vacuum. I'm going to go see about this. The kids need a laptop. Maybe I'm just going to take advantage of this and do that. And I was like, these really aren't that much less expensive. Like,
Right.
how has it been? Have you been able to take advantage of those perks as a military family of even buying diapers and formula and bottles? Like, is that better to do as a military family? Like, are you getting a perk of that? Or are you like, no, I'm going to Amazon like everybody else?
I think you can. And again, it depends on your location. So where we live, we're maybe 15, 20 minutes from the commissary in PX. So for me, part of it is, do I want to drive all the way there?
Hmm.
Because with 5 kids, a lot of it's just like, what's the most convenient? And, Target or Amazon can deliver. So I think it just depends on your situation and how motivated you are to go,
Hmm.
like, save the extra dollar or whatever it is. I found, between the commissary and PX, at least here, prices are pretty similar with Walmart.
Hmm.
So, again, who's going to deliver to my door?
Yeah.
Because the stage of life I'm in right now, like, I prefer that. My husband doesn't, but like, if I'm the one doing the shopping, I'm going to
Yeah.
do what's the easiest for me. And that's just where I'm at right now in life.
I
So,
was so disappointed with the lack of baby stuff that they had at
sure.
the
Yeah.
PX. I was really pissed off, to be honest. I'm like, dude, you don't have one twin stroller. And I went and asked because, of course, I'm me. But I was going to fight the fight. I mean, I know it's just one PX once in one place, but I was
Mhm.
like, how come these big companies aren't giving at least an at cost discount for you guys that are basically making our country what it is, right? And keeping us safe and making sure we're okay. And maybe I'm a little bit more sensitive because of where I live. And I really do feel much more, and I do live in New York City, guys. I feel so much more secure knowing that we have a military and a Coast Guard. And to me, I see the benefits because I could physically see the branches of military right here in my own backyard because hello, I live by the stock exchange. And I feel like we always have a target on us in general with that little statue in our harbor and our
Sure.
giant buildings and, all that and all the Federal Reserve gold. No, not much in my area, but I feel very in debt to the military. And so when I go to someplace, I want you guys to have like everything because I
Right.
also know you guys do have a harder life than a typical family who chooses XYZ. Like, not 100% of your life is going to be in your control as long as your husband stays part of any branch of the military. Like, do
Mhm.
you see an end where you're like, okay, he's going to retire at this point, and this is what we're going to do? Like, do you have a dream of that?
We talk about that quite often. Um, Sometimes I think we talk about it more than we talk about like what we're doing that night for dinner or the next day. And so I have to like reel it back in and be like, okay, let's get back to short term and what we're doing tomorrow. Um, but no, we talk about what that looks like. And I think part of our decision, as the years go on is, can we kind of stay somewhere so our kids can kind of stay in a school long enough to graduate,
Yeah.
out of high school and not have to be moving around, because I feel like you hit that middle school, high school age, and that's a harder time for
Yeah.
kids. I know for me, middle school is like the weirdest. But I feel like that'd be pretty challenging to be moving around at that age.
Mhm.
So we hope that we can at least try to stay put when they get to that point. And then maybe once we get through that, we can decide where we're going next and where we're going to like plant our final flag,
Yeah.
if you will.
Yeah.
But I can tell you from how many years have we been doing this? 12 years. Um you kind of start to get an itch to move because you're so used to moving. And we move about every 2 years or so. So I'm already getting that like I'm ready to
Yeah.
go, you know. So it'll be different not doing that.
It's so foreign to me. So my family has not lived off of this block since 1872.
Okay.
Do you know? And so like when I meet people that move a lot, I can't comprehend it. I basically left my parents' house and moved 17 steps upstairs of where I live now. And my daughter just moved out and she is about 16 steps vertically from where I am, not hard. It's unbelievable. So when I meet people that are like, I'm itching to move, I'm like, I don't even know what I would do. Like I don't have a lot of stuff because it's a small space. So that's where I'm winning. And I always
Right.
say, everybody's like, how do you live in this small space? Like we've been tiny house living before that was a show. So that welcome to Manhattan. But so I don't have much stuff if I did have to move, but knowing like how deep our roots are, and you're just like, I'm itching to move. I'm ready to get up and go. And I'm like, Katie, how could you do this? This is
Right.
unbelievable to me. But
Right.
I'm so excited when I meet people that are excited to move because it's my big fear. I don't know why. I'm not afraid of much, but I don't know where the hell I would go. Where am I going to go? I have no idea where I would go. But the
Mhm.
world is open and you're just like, yep. Do you get to say like, hey, we want to move east or we want to move to this country? Do you ever, as a partner in the military, get to have a say of like, we'd love the opportunity to do this? Just like if you worked for a corporation, you could say,
Mhm.
oh, they have, an office in Beijing. We want to live there. Do you get to have a choice of that at all?
Um, I mean, obviously, like my husband and I have those conversations when it's time for a transition as his career or whatever you want to call it. It's like the next phase. A lot of times, what they will have the opportunity to do is make a preference
Mm-hmm.
list, and they can kind of categorize, different locations and put them in order of preference. So him and I will, talk to each other about like, okay, what are all the options and where might we want to go and how do we want to kind of arrange it? And um so yes, sometimes you do have that and other times not as much.
Okay. Do you ever bring the kids into that discussion?
No.
Do you think you
But
will?
they haven't at this point, like they really hadn't been like old enough
Yeah.
to kind of be involved in that. I mean, my daughter's 8 and she's our only daughter. And then we have a 7-year-old, 2-year-old, and now, 2 10-month olds. But typically that's not something we ask them. Kind of lately, I guess the questions have more been like, are you excited or are you looking forward to kind of being somewhere and not moving and
Mm-hmm.
just staying put? I think we're kind of starting to ask those questions, but it's you just do the best you can and we just kind of prepare them like, hey, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
And if they feel like they have a say or they get to choose, like we don't want to let, break their hearts when it's like, clearly they're not getting what they want at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day. I don't know how to explain that any better, but they're
That's
pretty
a
young
great way to explain it. But do
to
you think
involve
that you
them in it.
will involve them when they're teenagers?
Probably.
Okay.
Probably. I mean, at that point, like I mentioned, we're really hoping to stay put.
Mm-hmm.
So it might be more like the youngest group, I call them my Tres Amigos, the three little ones. Um, at that point, they might have to move one more time after the first two, I'm hoping will be in college or,
Mm-hmm.
who knows?
It's going to be a journey.
It
It's going
is
to be, but
every
it's
day.
fascinating. And the good thing is we could be your constant. no matter where you are in the universe.
Yeah.
We will still be there every second and Tuesday of the month at 1:30 Eastern time. That's it. That's on our calendars forever. And I get so excited to see you. And I love like when Sean pops in, like when Helen's there, like it's like we're a weird gang of misfits that just get to see each other once a month. And it's really nice to check in. And I'm so appreciative that you're there. And how do you find it now that the kids are getting bigger and now we're getting the new people that are coming in with tinier babies? You're like an old pro now.
Kind of. It's kind of fun. Yeah, there was someone on the last call and she was still pregnant and these were her first babies. And I'm like, oh, like I can't wait to maybe, just be there to hear what's going on and maybe offer some help. And I don't know. That's what I like about this community is just everyone's willing to share their situation and then you can kind of take what's going on with you and pick and choose what you want to try or maybe this didn't work, but Nat or Lauren has a different piece of advice. Like when I went from the bouncy chairs feeding them to all of a sudden now they're in the car seats because they were like flying out of the bouncy chairs. So, just knowing that I could even do that, I'm like, why didn't I think to put them in the car seats? But,
it's things that it's really, I say, like, let's stop reinventing the wheel. Like I say it, I've been saying that since I launched Twiniversity. That was the whole point of it. It's that we're all doing things the hard way. What the heck are we doing? That was really the basis of it is like, this is so stupid. I learned all these things the hard way. Why didn't somebody tell me something? So that's really what it is. Do you think, are we what you expected us to be? Like when you first, and you found the book first, right?
I think it was probably kind of everything at the same time. I'm pretty sure I was watching YouTube videos for like a solid month about double or triple strollers. And you came on one of the, double stroller videos. And I was like, oh, Twiniversity, I should look that up. And I was pretty much hooked. I was like reading the book and I became a member and all that. And it's been great.
Could you tell them that I'm really a real person and that they could really call me just like you did? Could you just please let people don't believe me when I say just reach out?
Like I text Nat and Lauren and I send them pictures. And I think my favorite thing right now is when I have the Tres Amigos, the three little ones all in their high chairs lined up and I'm feeding them all at the same time. So you can text them, call them, email.
Nobody believes us, Katie. Seriously. We tell people all the time and they're like, we don't want to bother you. And we're like, what are you talking about? It's not a bother. This is our food is basically making sure that people feel whole and supported. That's what gets me up every day. Everybody's got a different mission in life, be it that you want to be a legendary artist. Truthfully, I just want people to be okay. And so does Lauren. Like that's our goal is like, just don't cry by yourself. Like if you're going to cry, we're in, we'll do it, but we're in this together. And I'm really really happy that we have you, Katie, seriously. And I don't even know how you agreed to do this. So thank you for agreeing to play on our podcast.
Thank you so much.
Well, good news. You'll get to see me next month. But for those of you listening in the merry Netherlands of wherever the heck you are, just know, like for realsies, we have a meeting every month, like Katie said, but we have everything for you guys. And if you find that you don't have something that you think we should provide for you, just let us know. You could email us at community@twiniversity.com. It is checked multiple times a day. You could also slide into every freaking DM on every social platform in the universe. It is constantly being monitored. We are a tiny but mighty Twiniversity team, just making sure that you are okay. So if you have more questions for Katie, you could stalk me too, and I could get them over to Katie because God only knows where she's going to be living tomorrow. No one really knows, but we're all easily found. And thank you so much for listening. As always, we hope that you go back and listen to the previous episodes. Go find my one with Jen and talking about her moves and all that stuff. But we have like the best freaking guests in the world. Seriously, like I can't even tell you. And the amount of people that apply to be on this is remarkable. Every time we get a little buzz that it's like, we want to talk to you. We love to hear all the stories, which is why we have almost 200 episodes, because everybody's got something to tell. Like everybody has a story. And Katie, did you not say, I don't even know what we're going to talk about?
Yeah, I was like, what is my story? I don't know.
And I had more questions, but we're literally out of time because whoever's listening to this has to get out of their car or go back to reality.
Sure.
So yeah, we can't keep them on forever, but I have a ton more questions because I want to talk about Irish triplets. I want to talk about, how to deal when you found out that there was two. See, so there's so many more things. We might have to do a part 2.
We could do it again.
See, this is just
Sounds
easy.
good.
That's the way to do it. All right, guys, smash that subscribe button, all that stuff that the kids say. And until next time, guys, see you later, alligators. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Nat.